At the beginning of 2001, I started writing in a diary, and there were a lot of entries in there about Rachelle and our life and her life, and consequently it ended up being the worst year of my life. When I read this, I'm disconnected, like I'm writing it, but I know I'm not feeling. My best friend in the whole world was murdered. Michelle's life was taken by a means I still don't know. All I know is that her body was found in some scrub on the side of the road. Who would want to hurt Shell? This is the question I keep asking myself.
I'm Ashley Hansen, and you're listening to episode 5 of Dear Rachelle, a podcast by True Crime Australia. This is the untold story of Rachelle Childs. In 2008, an inquest would rule that Rachelle was the victim of a homicide, but the coroner fell short of identifying who was responsible. In other words, it was an open finding. In her early 20s, Rachelle's best friend Lisa started keeping a diary. She filled it with her most secret and private thoughts. Never would she have imagined those diary entries would end up in the hands of detectives investigating her best friend's murder.
Rachelle had the biggest heart out of anyone I have ever known. Why would someone want to hurt her? I just can't believe it. I want them to be wrong. On the Wednesday, she was going to dinner at Sean's house for his 21st birthday.
At the time, Sean was going out with Rachelle's little sister, Christy.
Friday was going to maybe take Lee for a ride in some loud car she was going to get from Kevin, and maybe take Glenn to the airport.
Remember Lee? He was the young guy from Bow Repairs who Rachelle was flirting with, and Glenn was a long-term friend of hers. He was one of the last people to talk to her before she was murdered. Both innocent young men would end up persons of interest in Rachelle's murder, purely through that recent contact. And Kevin, he was Rachelle's boss at the time at Camden Holden. By the way, you're about to hear a reference to the Catho. It's short for the Catholic Club, a nightclub in Campbelltown.
That night we were going to go to the Catho with Fiona and dance upstairs. Saturday we were going to go into the city to the Ice House or something for Sean's 21st. On the Thursday, I remember her saying she was going out and drinking, because I remember thinking to myself, oh shit, how is she going to pull off this weekend? I know she told me where she was going, and I'm pretty sure who with. I just can't fucking remember. I can't believe it. The one thing, the one detail that matters, and I can't remember. I remember her mentioning something about the rebels and going to their clubhouse, which I thought was the Leppington one, but I'm not sure she said it was that one. And I told her off because it was unsafe, and she had a weird tone, like she didn't want to really tell me. She reassured me by saying she knew either him or them and that it would be okay. I still felt uneasy about it though. I'm going to see a hypnotist this Friday. On the day I gave my statement, I said to the police that I know she told me and expressed my frustration at not remembering, and I told them to put me under hypnosis so I would remember. And weeks later, they have finally decided to listen to me. I remember I get goosebumps when I think about it because I don't know, I feel like she was present with me in that moment. And I went under hypnosis and they were getting me to take the role of Rachelle. And I remember straight away, my posture went from this to, slumping. I remember doing this, like I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, right? And I just started being Rachelle and my voice changed. I started talking like her. I remember swearing a lot. I remember saying a lot and fuck yeah a lot. And having a drag on my fake cigarette. And I remember giggling at myself, thinking, oh my God, I'm Rachelle, but not being able to control it. And then I don't really remember a lot of what I actually said, but I don't think they got a lot of gold, out of it, sadly. But yeah, it was an interesting thing to go through. And really, when I look back at that experience, that was the extent. Like, I would continue to do anything to help. You tell me what I need to, remember or say or dig up or find, or, I was just so keen to find an answer to this for everyone involved.
Hypnosis might sound like a fairly unorthodox method, but it's not as unusual as you'd think. Regardless, by this point, police were desperate to uncover new leads any way they could. In the last episode, Ivor Davies, the lead investigator on Rachelle's murder, recalled witnessing a heated interaction between a father and son in a police car park. The son, Bruce, was Rachelle's neighbour in Bargo. Bruce and his dad had just been questioned over their movements on the 7th of June 2001, the night Rachelle died. Damian Loon has a few thoughts on Bruce's alibi.
He had an alibi on the evening that night of working with his father and another man on a car that was to be shown that weekend at Taree, and it appears that some discrepancy in relation to who was there and for how long, and that alibi was investigated by police, etc., what they said, and a number of statements were taken. And this is in the early days, but also in the re-investigation of it. But he certainly was someone of interest, I would say, and the fact that he moved very quickly away from the area with his wife up to North Queensland after Rachelle's death was somewhat suspicious. But his wife had moved up there prior to him, so he went to join her and the kids. So when you put it in that context, it's probably not such a big deal, but he's removed himself from the area as a neighbour. He admits that he had a thing for her, but nothing sexual, just a hug and a kiss here and there. And I think he was hoping for more, but I think she told him straight away that nothing else was going to happen.
Do you think it's suspicious that his jerry can was found in the boot of her car, given that Rachelle's body was set on fire?
Look, you could say yes and you could say no in this scenario, but I think the investigations clearly worked out that Rachelle was prone to breaking down, running out of petrol, because she'd only put minimal amounts of fuel in her car. She didn't have a lot of money. So she's borrowed a spare jerry can from him at some stage to keep petrol in it in case she did run out. And you could say that was, if you'd be stupid enough to leave that jerry can in the boot of that vehicle, it'd come back to bite you very quickly. So I think, honestly, it was a genuine act of kindness, and he's given her a fuel can, and he says that. He doesn't deny that. And we know that she was prone to running out of fuel.
And it was just unfortunate that the jerry can was found in the boot of the car.
Yes, and her body had been set alight by an accelerant. So, we're looking pretty good here for it, but it was investigated. I think it was a satisfactory explanation as to why it was in there.
Reviewing the facts today, Damian doesn't think Bruce was involved in Rachelle's murder. Something we keep coming back to, though, is the Bargo Hotel. To get our heads around the case, Damian and I went for a visit to the old pub. Who was Rachelle supposedly meeting here on that Thursday night? And how did her car get here?
So she drove it up nose first, I'd say, just here outside.
How do we know that she even drove it here?
Well, that's right. Do we know that? We don't know that.
How common was it in 2001 for pubs and clubs and businesses to have CCTV?
Oh, they had I know, because I was doing a brief on a serious assault at DY Hotel back in 1997, and they had CCTV footage out the front of the premises.
Unfortunately, the Bargo Hotel didn't have one.
Not out the back. They have it now. They have one up there now.
It's looking right at us. Let's look into the evidence gathered from the Bargo Hotel in the early days of the investigation. Thursday was topless waitress night, so the punters were predominantly men. And even though Rachelle lived nearby, it wasn't somewhere where she was known to go. These days, Hotel Bargo, as it's now called, has been renovated, and it's a popular family-friendly pub. But in early 2001, it was a common drinking hole for the local rebels, and it had a bit of a rough reputation. Early in the search for Rachelle, her family was told she was going to meet someone at the Bargo Hotel, There's some conflicting evidence about whether anyone saw Rachelle there. Bartender Joy Eastman remembers seeing a blonde 23-year-old who showed her ID early in the night. Police looked into that, but it was later revealed another blonde woman of the same age with a similar appearance was in the bar that night. The pub manager at the time, Colin Picton, is adamant though she was never there. We know Rachelle's distinctive blue Commodore was discovered in the pub's back car park on the Saturday, but when it was placed there and by who could unlock the mystery. Rachelle's friends and family recall racing to the hotel when they heard her car had been found.
We got into the car and I remember sitting in the car and going, there's something wrong.
But the car seat didn't look like the way Rachelle would sit.
The club lock was on upside down.
She would sit like hanging back with the sort of cruisy arm and, you know.
She had a specific way that she used to put the club lock on.
But she had one of those old hooks that you pull the arm out.
And the seat was really far back, which she did used to have her seat really far back, but it was really far back.
From memory, that all just looks funny. It just didn't look like she'd driven it.
And I remember looking at the car going, there's something seriously wrong here. She didn't park this here.
So who did park it there? And what secrets could her beloved 1978 Holden Commodore VB offer up? That car's been in Christie's farm shed for a long time now. But 6 years after Rachelle's murder, it was still in the hands of police. They called in photogrammetry expert Professor John Fryer to recreate the positioning of the driver's seat. Their goal was to establish the height of the person who last sat behind the wheel.
I came into this 6 years after the event. That's typical of most of the jobs I did. Most of the jobs had gone cold, and after they go cold for a few years, the police seem to leave it, and then they get a new team to investigate it, and then that new team says, what else can we find? And then they often came to me to look at some video evidence, photographs or whatever, to try and dig something else out.
Let's go back to the 29th of May 2007 at Marulan, a town in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. You were asked by police to prepare a report and inspect a vehicle at Marulan that was connected to a police investigation. Can you tell me about that day?
Yeah, I remember the day quite clearly because I'd had to get up very early to drive to Marulan, and I got there early, about 9 o'clock, and there was a large holding yard in basically the countryside behind the police station, and it's full of vehicles of various types. The one I was shown was I think it's a Holden. That particular vehicle had obviously been forensically examined. The linings were off the inside of the doors. The steering wheel was not there. And I was asked, given these original photographs from the original police photographer, could I recreate the seats back into the position they were originally? And then when the seats were back in the position they were originally, could I make measurements as to how far from the seat to the accelerator pedal or to the brake or to where the steering wheel was?
So you measured the distance from the bottom of the seat?
Yeah, from the front of the bottom of the seat to the accelerator and the brake pedal, and they were about 500 millimetres. And I also measured the distance from the headrest and the back of the seat to where the steering wheel would have been. As I say, the steering wheel was gone, but the nut that held it on and the steering column was still there, so I could make that measurement. What the police did with this information, I don't know, but I presume they tried those distances out on that vehicle with different sized people to see whether it was a tall person who drove it or a short person or a medium one. And I submitted my report. I never heard back.
You were never told who owned the car and the circumstances really about who the victim was at the heart of this investigation?
Until you rang me up and said the lady's name that was involved in this, I had never heard that name. All I knew was a motor car, and here's some photos of it, put the seats back as they were and make some measurements for us.
Would you like to see the owner and the victim at the heart of this story?
Oh, yeah.
This is her.
Rachelle Childs, 23.
Wow, she looks like a film person. Bette Midler or somebody.
She was stunning, wasn't she?
Yes.
Who saw Rachelle's car where and when on the night in question has been a point of contention from the beginning. Memories fade, and when you're talking to pub patrons, days or even weeks after the event, things can be a bit blurry. We've taken you through the suspicious sightings of a car similar to Rachelle's at Jirowa, where her burning body was found. But there were also reports suggesting her blue Commodore was parked at the Bargo Hotel as early as 6:30 and as late as 10:30 on the Thursday night. If both sets of witnesses saw the same Commodore, someone's memory is incorrect. Or maybe their recollection of which night they saw the car at the pub is out. We know the pub closed at midnight.
I'm Kris Illingsworth. I'm a former New South Wales Police Force Detective Sergeant. I was trained by the FBI in criminal profiling. I was the New South Wales Police criminal profiler for about 10 years, and I worked on the Rachelle Childs case in 2003. I was brought in by Detective Inspector Mick Ashwood from Homicide in July 2003, so 2 years after the murder. And my job was just to come in, look at the scene, look at the material that Mick provided to me, photos, autopsy report, and do what you do as a profiler, look at the behaviour, what happened, why did it happen that way, who would need to do those things for those reasons. Because people often, police included, will jump straight to, well, who done it? You know, this happened, well, who done it? They miss two crucial steps, which is what happened and why did it happen, and those two things will tell you about the person who did it. You can't just go straight to who did it.
Chris's report has never been shared with Rachelle's family or the public until now. We met for the first time at 7 Mile Beach, Jirowa, and she took me through her recollection of what she believes happened to Rachelle in precise detail after she was murdered.
She's been dragged down here, straight down towards here, and by the ankles, by the 2 feet together, dragging that way. And at this point, the offender looks to have bumped into a sapling, because there's a snapped sapling just where her feet are. So it's almost like he's gone, oh, like that. And the debris that's around here, because this grass wasn't here so much, it was more just plant material, like leaf material, is kicked up onto, like she was lying on the left side in a fetal position, so, and she's naked from the waist down, so her buttocks and her upper legs from the rear are exposed. And some debris has been kicked onto this area, onto her buttocks area, which I think is just from where he's slipped and fallen on the slope in the dark and gone whoop like that and kicked some debris onto her. I don't think that was intentional. And after that, there's a few steps after that. So there's some fire debris on the higher side, and it makes me wonder if he started the fire on the higher side and there's sort of a drag across the top of the tank through that material that's on top, this natural material. And the fire's actually lit here, but possibly had to go there too. And there's some accelerant on the tank itself, so it's like a bit of a pour. But the other option is that it was started there. It's more downhill, so the accelerant runs downhill onto the tank. I think that's what happened. And he's going, accelerants run off the body. So I'll pull the body down here, slip over, and her position, because she's been dragged in by the feet, she ends up sort of about here, face down, left fetal side down, face close to the tank, because the tank's protruding about that much. And feet back here, lying back here, and the two ankles are together. So like this. And there's just a faint discoloration around the ankles or the feet, which supports it being held by the ankles. So once he's found the location, dragged her down here, probably had a go at one point with the fire, moved her around to here, slipped, had another go with the fire, and that's the final position. But before doing that, the person has had a go at opening up this tank with the concrete lid, which is, about that thick. So it's really heavy, very thick. So it didn't work. The plan to open the tank didn't work. And as we know now, even if he had got it open, there wasn't enough room to put her in there anyway.
To view an extended video of Kris's insights as she follows the killer's tracks, disposing of Rachelle's body and belongings, visit dearrachelle.com.au. Some of the facts are confronting, but we think this level of detail is paramount and could go a long way to exposing who was responsible for Rachelle's suspected rape and murder.
There's a lot of places between here and Bargo that would be better. So why not pull over in one of those better places? It's less time and effort, there's less risk because you're getting rid of the body quicker. There's two ways to look at it. One, that he knew this was here, but why come all this way, like 100 odd Ks for an hour or more, to this, only to create a fire which is close to the road, and it gets found very quickly as it happens. And even though it's late, it's a kind of a well-used road, so it's not smart. You do all this, which suggests organisation, planning, thinking, and then you drive away, still with the property. Why not leave the property here?
Rachelle's belongings, including her handbag, shoes and a bedsheet, which was stored in Rachelle's boot, were found scattered in different places, a fair distance apart. As Kris suggests, it's very telling of the offender's state of mind at the time. Kris takes us on the same trail.
We're on Beach Road, about 1 kilometre from where you turn off to head towards Berry, probably about 2 kilometres in total from the body deposition site. And there's a little intersection here next to a private property. There's a farmer's property on the other side of the road. And this is where the sheet was found. It was a commercial grade white flat sheet, and it had some soiled from the ground on it. So the offender would have pulled over here. It's a spot where you can actually pull off the road, not put it on that side because it is the private property, but put it on that side. There's a few trees in the hope that no one will see it, but it was actually found fairly quickly. So it's not an intelligent site to put it. Again, it reflects haste and inexperience with how to deal with getting rid of physical evidence. Like, this is a pretty hasty, sloppy way to do it.
We've just arrived at the Tarmor Inn, which is at Tarmor. And why is this location a piece of the puzzle?
Well, this is one of the crime sites. This is where a pair of shoes were found that were determined to be Rachelle's shoes, along with some rubbish. There was a worker, a groundsman, who found these shoes on the morning of Friday, the 8th of June. So that is the morning of Rachelle's body being burnt. Now, he thinks he saw a vehicle here, but it was pretty dark. And in the morning, he saw these shoes and this rubbish. He went over there and had a look, but he didn't do much about it. And then a few days later, the boss of the place said, "Oh, you better go and clean up that rubbish." So that's when the shoes were actually found and recovered. But the police weren't notified for, I think it was about another month or so. I mean, behaviourally, it says that the items of clothing and the sheet were disposed of on the way back to the safe place. We're at Tarmor, so it's like an hour and 10 north of the body site.
Could the killer live in that direction?
Yes.
And what direction is that?
That's north, heading towards Picton and Camden.
How far are we from the last location?
Roughly 4 kilometres north of where the shoes were found. So we're now where the handbag was found with her credit cards in her purse inside the handbag and also her Nokia mobile phone. And you can see there's a fence just here, but there's another fence just behind. So as the fence behind, the handbag's been thrown up there towards the fence behind, so probably 20 metres from where we are. It's not to say the offender didn't run to this fence and throw it over, but it landed on the roadside of the far fence. And when the farmer came along and slashed that paddock, he just happened to see the handbag on the other side of the fence. So again, you can see the haste that's involved, and this is a pretty poor choice as well.
Was the faceplate of the CD player belonging to Rachelle found in that handbag?
I believe it was, yes.
And do you know anything about the missing stereo that was connected to that faceplate?
I think it's probably been stolen while the car's been parked there for several days and nights.
After we finished recording at those key locations linked to the killer's movements, I wanted to ask Kris why she agreed to be involved in our investigation over 20 years later.
You know, there are cases that you don't forget. This is one of them. A lot of work did go into this investigation. I was called in by Detective Inspector Mick Ashwood from Homicide. Mick's an excellent investigator, very thorough, thinks laterally. He's very aware of tunnel vision as well, which you've got to be careful of. So, yeah, I came on board when Mick asked. We'd worked on other cases together, and I did what I could to help Rachelle, and as I do for all cases I work on, to help the victim and their families and friends. And so when this opportunity came up, I thought, well, yeah, if it helps, basically, if it helps, I would be pleased to help.
Let's go back to Mick Ashwood.
What was identified in the initial investigation was a sheet found about 1 kilometre from the scene. Now, when we looked at some of these exhibits like that, some of the items in the car, some processing took place, which is called trying to recover DNA. Some swabbing occurred. Now, that led, I think, probably 6 months or a year into it, the second investigation, that there was a common DNA on a number of items, critically the bedsheet and some items in the car. The significance was that it was the same DNA.
After processing the crime scene exhibits, police had discovered an unknown male DNA profile, and they were desperate to identify the man it belonged to.
With no strong leads, police, in an Australian first, asked 60 men to volunteer DNA samples.
The testing is not compulsory, but police say they can still rely on conventional methods of investigation.
And then following this, it'll be luck.
Now's the time to come forward because we're going to come looking for you.
Detectives were asking anyone who could have crossed paths with Rachelle to volunteer their DNA.
In consultation, we decided to do a mass screening DNA operation in the town of Camden. The whole idea of that is you use the energy of a mass screening DNA operation, and they're quite successful. Our media strategy, and we get samples from everyone. Now, in this particular case, over, I can't think it was a week, a few days, we ended up getting DNA samples from everyone that was person of interest in the case, the Outlaw Motorcycle Group. So that was successful.
Yeah, it was massive, and everyone was really supportive. Couldn't help enough. They were quite happy to volunteer DNA, and it wasn't, DNA that was going to be kept on file. It was only going to be used in Rachelle's case. Yeah, and it was huge, and everyone in the community went and gave DNA.
The size of that response shocked police, especially when a bunch of bikies turned up, including Sash.
We were standing in this balcony at, I think it was Camden Police Station, talking to the Sergeant at Arms and the president of the chapter. And they changed from the old style bikies. This was well before what you have now. Back then there was no real shootings and stuff. They kept to themselves. But these were the new group. They had their long sleeve sweaters which had their name down the side, the name of their club, their OMCG club, and they had a bit of jewellery. So it was that start of the new generation of bikies. So we did a bit of work and talking to them, saying, well, look, come and give you a sample. Come and get your hot chapter in, give some samples, got nothing to hide. And that way, we won't be on your case. We can eliminate you.
Did it surprise you when the Rebels bikies turned up?
It did, but it also reaffirmed my thought that this is a red herring placed by someone, because it takes a lot of hypothesis, the steps into an argument as to why Rachelle was associating with them when it was put forward by one person.
Kevin told Dad that Rachelle wanted to leave early on the Thursday to go to the Bargo pub to meet someone at 6 p.m. And if you trace it all back, Kevin's the only one that said that she was going to Bargo pub. And I think other people who have said it, it was after.
Police were closing in and the net was tightening on one man, Rachelle's boss, Kevin Carell. He was in the frame very early on because of his strange behaviour in the days before and after Rachelle went missing.
Kevin and Rachelle were quite close. He was like a father figure to her. She looked up to him, unfortunately. So I called him and said, she's missing. And I was, beside myself. And I remember getting off the phone and saying to Fiona, that was so weird. He's not concerned at all. Couldn't get off the phone quick enough.
When she was missing, did you talk to Kevin, given he was your colleague at Camden Holden? Did you call him, and do you remember that conversation with him at the time?
Yep, and he was very aloof, just very, didn't even want to help, didn't ask questions, didn't anything.
No, he wasn't particularly helpful. He seemed concerned, but something was missing there. I don't know.
He just did not care. And that is weird coming from someone who seemed so concerned about every other aspect of her life.
He paints his picture at work as a loving co-worker who deeply cares for Rachelle and her employment, etc. And then suddenly she goes missing and, well, so what? And nothing's happened. He doesn't help search, he doesn't do anything, doesn't make any telephone calls. He doesn't certainly assist the child's family with anything, and that's noted by them as well.
I expected him to cancel all his plans and be there in 10 minutes as fast as he possibly could while he was bringing everybody he knew. That was because he had told Rachelle that he used to be a detective, which was bullshit.
Looking back, when he came to work on that Friday morning, he was late and he looked like shit. He looked really crappy, really like he hadn't slept. And he left early on that Friday afternoon, and saying he had a doctor's appointment too. But yeah, didn't want to help, wasn't concerned. And I'm like, you're concerned all the time. You're always, why are you not now? She's missing. Like, why are you not concerned? Something's not right there. Doesn't sit well with me at all.
And he's a suspect, by the way. It's Carell. There's no doubt about it. He's a red-hot suspect. And here he is, suddenly he doesn't want to get involved. Why? What's a change in his personality? It's a change in his behaviour. Is it something because something's bad happened and he knows about it? And he knows it's futile to go looking for somebody that you already know is deceased? You don't want to get involved, you don't want to be there, you don't want to be seen. Some people, prior to a serious incident, and that something's bad and you're involved, you're the offender, something's bad happened, well then go into a state of withdrawal. They'll go into hibernation. They won't speak to people. They're not the usual jovial self. Their habits become very obvious. And that night, he's by himself, and following her disappearance, he's not really concerned about where she is.
As those closest to Rachelle mourned her sudden loss, Kevin's unusual behaviour didn't go unnoticed. Does any one particular person stand out to you at the funeral?
Yeah.
Can you talk me through it?
Kevin. I've just always felt incredibly uneasy about him. I remember staring at him at the court case and he wouldn't make eye contact with me. I remember staring at him at the funeral and he wouldn't look at me. I remember the distance he had from everybody else at the funeral. He just made me feel uncomfortable. Something just didn't sit right with him.
So tell me about the days that followed Rachelle's death. What happened next?
From memory, it was pretty sombre environment at the shop. I held a regular meeting of managers at the shop, which would normally have included Kevin. I think it was the first meeting after the funeral. Kevin was quite upset, and I just said, "Look, leave the meeting. You're obviously not able to participate in the frame of mind you are, so just when you go home or go back to your office, so just leave."
Kevin Stephen Carell strenuously denies any involvement in Rachelle's death. He has willingly participated in 3 records of interview with police. He voluntarily provided a DNA sample for comparison to material held by police investigators, and that could be an indication that he has nothing to hide. Kevin provided a detailed alibi. He says on the night Rachelle was killed, he left work, went shopping at Campbelltown, visited his girlfriend's house at Picton, although she wasn't home, grabbed takeaway in Tamil and recalled exactly what he ordered, being a fish cake, battered salve, a bag of chips and a Coke, and then went home and watched some Dawson's Creek on TV. He says he then went to a nearby servo to buy milk, and then he went to the pub, and then he came home, where he ironed a shirt and watched some Big Brother on TV before falling asleep. No one can verify his alibi. We'll go deeper into Kevin's alibi soon, but let's talk about his family. Kevin's brother Raymond Barry Cornwall is a serial sex offender, jailed for raping multiple victims, including girls as young as 13.
The sense of fear he created. As a woman, you wouldn't leave the house. You wouldn't run in the parks. That's the fear that he had. He was very active, very fearful. He was one of the most active bad rapists in Sydney in a period probably you cover 20 to 30 years. Not saying that's the range of his offending. There's been others, North Shore rapist, St Clair rapist. He was clearly in that level. It's the offender that type, they're all bad, but this one that they need the constant gratification from instilling fear and wanting power over women. They get off on it, and they are sadistic people, and yeah, he would be up there with some of the worst in the last 30, 40 years.
Of course, Kevin is not responsible for his brother Raymond's crimes. Just because one brother is a certain way doesn't mean another is too. But it is an interesting fact. So many people have suffered at the hands of Raymond Barry Cornwall, who's now a free man. Court documents reveal his brother Kevin visited him after his arrest at Bankstown Police Station in Sydney in 1993. Cornwall confessed his disturbing crimes to his brother Kevin, who relayed the information to police. Raymond would serve 14 years for those crimes, and when he was released, it wasn't long before he was offending again. The convicted pedophile is closely monitored by authorities to this day. The brothers no longer share the same surname. Something prompted Kevin to change his name, and by the time he ran the used car sales department at Camden Holden in 2001, he was Kevin Carell. Under his previous name, Kevin Stephen Cornwall, he was accused of a series of violent sex attacks in the 1980s. However, Kevin denied the alleged conduct and was acquitted of all charges. And now 40 years later, some of those alleged victims are telling their story for Rachelle. It's not in dispute that the women you're about to hear from were assaulted. The he they all refer to is whoever committed these terrifying crimes. True Crime Australia is not saying Kevin is guilty of these crimes. We are only pointing out that there are reasonable grounds to suspect Kevin committed these crimes. And that's part of the reason he is a prime suspect in the suspected rape and murder of Rachelle. True Crime Australia is saying that there are reasonable grounds to think Kevin Carell was involved in Rachelle's murder, not necessarily that he is guilty. On the next episode of Dear Rachelle.
So the knock at the door, I opened it and it was bam, instant. Balaclava. The knife was like held up here. He pushed me back.
I was walking down the hall to re-show him the lounge room and that. He pulled a knife on me.
He just came straight at me and it was just closed, hard fist.
Proceeded to tell me that if I didn't do what he said, he would kill my kids.
And I just went down. It was like, I just went smack down on the bed.
I did what he said and he raped me.
I remember thinking, holy shit, I'm going to die.
Dear Rachelle is a multimedia production from True Crime Australia. If you want to be the first to find out what happens next, go to dearrachelle.com.au. That's where News Corp Australia subscribers get early access to podcast episodes and breaking news in our live investigation before anybody else. And you'll also find exclusive videos, interactive evidence, feature articles and more. That's dearrachelle.com.au. dearrachelle.com.au. If you have any tips or confidential information to share with me, Ashley Hansen, please send an email to dearrachelle@news.com.au. Our supervising producer and audio editor is Reese Gunter. Rachel Fountain is executive producer and audio director. Our executive editor is Sarah Blake. Our senior journalist is Patrick Carline. Video editors are Gillian McNally, Owen Yang and Stephen Woods. Picture editors are Jeff Darmanin and Christy Miller. Senior camera operators are Daniel Andrews and Oscar Vieira. With sound design by Martin Peralta. Thanks also to Greg Thompson, Eleni Paneras, Shoba Rayo, Faye Gould, Vanessa Graham, Hayley Goddard, Stephen Grice, Charlotte Karp, Tina Coggins and Harry Hughes. Special thanks to the Daily Telegraph editor Ben English. And Dear Rachelle would not be possible without the help and unwavering support of Christy and Ann Childs, Mindy Wicks, Damian Loon and Rachelle's friends. This podcast series is hosted and investigated by me, Ashley Hansen.